Hey there, and howdy, everybody, and welcome to this wonderful episode of Retro Rare Parent. Blah, 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 blah. Yes, those are words.
Cut.
Words are
All
hard.
right, take two, Joe.
Hi, everybody. Yes, it's our May the 4th episode. May the 4th be with you, or Dave Brubeck Day, or Star Trek is better than all of those, whatever you want to believe in these wonderful, trying times. I'd like to say thank you to everybody who is ambled on into the chat this evening. We've got Dave and CDI and Curtis and 2K and Francois, and I'm sure a whole bunch of other people, Jack and Gut Bomb and everybody else in the chat. Thank you for stopping by tonight. It is a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Also, remember while you're here, hit the like button and do the subscribe-y thing and leave notes in the chat and leave comments and all that stuff. That makes YouTube think we're like important or something and does the promotional stuff. So it is very helpful. But without further ado, let us introduce our wonderful guest. He's an author, a filmmaker, a Macintosh game developer, and a HyperCard aficionado, Robyn Miller. Hello, Robyn. Thanks for
hi, everybody. Hi, good to be here.
Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you so we know who we're talking to. I mean, we all know who we're talking to. But
all right, I think most people probably know of me from the Myst/Riven games. At least that's when people, want to talk to me. It's usually about those games. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say, but that's that's it.
Don't worry, Robyn. We want to talk to you about things much older than Myst tonight.
Oh yeah,
going further back in time.
Like my question, that it's a good segue. How did you get started in computing?
Ooh, well, actually, that's really cool. I got started in computing. I mean, are we jumping into questions now?
No,
we can't.
Anyway, let's do it.
Whatever. Yeah.
I got started in computing. Rand, my older brother, he was in computers, getting into computers like back in junior high, breaking into the New Mexico University, I guess, of New Mexico Computer Lab at a really young age. And so he was then also doing things like buying computers, every computer that came along, and he would always show those computers to me, and those would be cool. They never really grabbed my attention because I was coming more from an art end, and they just weren't user friendly enough for me. There would be little games and things like that would kind of interest me, but not enough to kind of jump in head first. Until he bought a Mac in 1984 when they came out. And I held a mouse for the first time. And I moved it around, and this thing and the screen moved around, and I cut and pasted. And this sort of, was a lot like cutting and pasting in real life. And it had a drawing program, which blew my mind. And I remember a lot of these analogs, to real life that just really like, oh wait, no, computers can do this. They're like doing these things, not necessarily the most powerful computer in the world, but it was powerful in a completely different way, in that it just could do the same things I understood. Now I had used computers previous to that. I used, like, I had programmed in BASIC, and done some like crazy, like silly things, but it just didn't turn me on. It wasn't like that. It wasn't stuff that was really fun for me. I was more into painting and music and these sorts of things. When I started using his Mac, I had the realization that I could make art on this. And I did. I started using his computer to make art, and I'm probably going on too long with the answer, but I started making art. I started immediately. I I think it was Mac User magazine or Mac World magazine, started making art on his computer and sending it into Mac World magazine and
Oh, wow.
winning contests. And that was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is like art now. It kind of blends with this computer world. It's all the same thing. It can be the same thing. So that's kind of my interest was becoming one. Now, I will also kind of add to the answer that with this, I was really into Omni magazine back then. Do you remember Omni?
Yeah.
Are any of you old enough to remember Omni magazine?
Yeah.
I remember the logo.
We are
Yeah,
old enough.
okay.
It's
Right,
the
okay,
magazine that
you
had the
are.
Ghostbusters proton pack on, right?
I don't remember. Probably, yes.
It's in the movie. It's in the movie. But
Okay,
no,
okay. That
my local
totally
library
makes
had
sense.
a
It totally makes
subscription to
sense.
Omni. Yeah.
So I had a subscription to Omni, and I like ate that up. And every once in a while, they would have computer art, and there was like 3D art.
Mhm.
And I was like, I kind of felt that, oh wow, someday I could do that. I could do 3D art. That would be, that would. I felt like that was beyond anything I would have the privilege of doing. So that was out there somewhere. I felt like that could be out there in my future. So that's kind. I hope that answers the question somehow.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it does, because it's perfect for what I was going to ask, which is you had talked about like seeing all this other art and things like that, and computer generated things, and this imagery that was just like so like it just so cutting edge, and it just seemed like the future, and it seemed like something that was beyond a lot of our things that you could do as a home user or things you could do as an
Right.
amateur.
Yeah.
But when was it that you really made that jump and realized that computers and games especially can be this really powerful tool for storytelling?
Well, I don't know if I put two and two together and realized they could be a powerful tool for storytelling, even after we did our first two, even after we did our children's games,
Mhm.
because they were I was considering them to be worlds. And I'm talking specifically about the Manhole and Cosmic Osmo. When we did those, I can't honestly say if I was thinking they were, if I was thinking of storytelling. It wasn't until we got later down the road that we started thinking, oh, this can be used as a storytelling device.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we went and created Myst.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were first, so the answer is Myst. That was when we, actually wrote sort of a little mini manifesto and said, okay, this is going to be our storytelling device.
Mm-hmm.
A non-linear storytelling device. But when we were those earlier projects, they were more of just wandering through a world, and they didn't have as much of a purpose in terms of story, in terms of character, in terms of really anything at all. They were just having fun.
And maybe that is a really good way to put it, because they do build these very interesting worlds that you want to interact with, and you want to click, and you want to see what's next, to kind of push the boundaries of whatever it is that you can explore. So as a narrative framework, even if the story is something as simple as because I can't, oh gosh, that's the thing, when you start telling a story, you got to have all the details. But there's a band in the 90s that made like a CD-ROM that was like an interactive thing, where it was basically just sort of like, it would be an album cover, and you would click in and you would kind of explore that and kind of just dive in. And it didn't really make it didn't have like any specific thing to say, but it was just like, it was about like it was like when you were a kid and you would sit down and you would like look at a Hawkwind album cover and you're just like really like looking at the art and really like just like enjoying this thing that people created for you. And so I mean the world building on that stuff is really great. So maybe that was a better way to put that. So thank
Yeah,
you, Bill.
well, okay. And I'll say, like, when we did the Manhole, seriously, the world building was completely spontaneous. And I don't know what it feels like for, say, the user or a kid when they're playing it, but we didn't even know it was ever going to be released. So I certainly didn't. I was just going to school. I took off for a semester to get residency in the state of Washington. And then that was the amount of time when I started drawing those pictures and piecing it together in HyperCard, which you can do in HyperCard. I could do back then because it's so easy to use. I wasn't a programmer. And I drew one picture. I drew the first picture you see, a manhole, and it's just like, what happens next? Okay, it opens. What happens next? I just thought, oh, okay, vines grow out of it. And that's how I worked my way through the entire world. I never planned anything. I never thought ahead. I just drew and drew and drew and drew. And then it started looping back around on itself. And so as far as world building, it was horrible world building. It was just you that's the worst way to build a world. Somehow it worked. And I was like working at the speed of light. I was just draw. What I was doing really was learning the tool. Learning the drawing tools, learning HyperCard, learning everything. And then I would send those things down to Rand and, disc at a time. And as he got those, it was occurring to him, oh, yeah, we're going to sell this. Which, I didn't know he was thinking that, but he compiled it all, putting it together. He was adding voices. And then he was realizing that this was going to be a product. So that's how that one kind of came together. It was sort of an accidental product, if you will.
It's an important one, though. We're talking about it like nearly 40 years later. I mean, this is a foundational thing for a lot of people that are watching this stream right now. That this was like one of their first interactions with like hypermedia and with like kind of that interactive computing. Because I mean, up until then, yeah, you had games, you had things like that, but there was nothing like this. This was such an amazing new thing.
Yeah, well, one of the things that was interesting, because we went down to this Hyper Expo to sell it. We printed up a bunch of copies, and we went down to sell it, and I was surprised, first of all, that there weren't more games being sold. But of course, you can make anything with HyperCard. So why would there be more games? But I was also surprised at the time, as I found out more about, what was for sale in the market, just the Mac market, that there wasn't more navigable worlds. And I think that's what people what they liked about that product was just the ability. At the time, it gave people the ability to just wander through the world, which was unique at that period.
You've touched on a little bit about using HyperCard as creative media. My question is, we're all familiar with, everyone here, everyone watching is familiar with these titles. And we're curious how you settled on using HyperCard to design these things.
HyperCard was amazing. I wish HyperCard existed. In a direct form, like as an application you can get a hold of HyperCard in certain ways, but I wish it existed in the same way it existed back then. It was so easy to use. Everything exists on one page. But yet you kind of didn't see any tools. If you wanted to paint, you could paint. But the paint tools were not complex. Bill Atkinson he knew exactly how to make the interface very, very simple. But as you started to dig, you could get more complexity and more complexity and more complexity. And I think that's how he hooked people in. I, at a certain point, got a computer for my 5-year-old and gave him HyperCard. And he started creating all kinds of programs. And it just was the kind of thing. I mean, schools had HyperCard and they were giving it to kids, and kids were creating all kinds of things. Now, in a certain way, the web is like HyperCard. It links page to page to page, but it's not at all the same manner of simplicity. You can't create and it shouldn't be. I mean, there's a lot more you can do with a website. But HyperCard allowed me, I'll just say, at that time with knowing very little, to just create. I mean, the very first day I had the tool, without knowing any programming, I started making the Manhole, our first product. And I kept making it, and I was making what I call animations, and it took it was kind of nonstop creation. And I came from a world of painting, so it didn't feel any different than painting for me. I don't know of any other tool that feels like that today, even this many years later. Because because things are overburdened with so many, with so much, like, hey, you can do, here's something, with something, with too much that it allows you to. I'm a tool user. I love tools. So, I mean, you should know that. I just, that's how Ran and I have done every single thing we've done. Every single thing we've made is just by finding tools to use. And so it's not like I don't like tools, but boy, that was a great one to start with. And I think it's just it's a little discouraging that it sort of fell out of favor, because it was a great one for kids too, especially.
I think like one of the limitations on the Mac was just the black and white limitation.
Yeah.
And then also tools kind of evolved and people wanted to do more things. And it just sort of it for something that Apple gave away for free.
Right.
That it was sort of like it had a really good run and it probably could have had a longer run. And we've interviewed and talked to other people that were originally HyperCard developers that then ended up moving to other products. That
That's
basically
true.
they just got forced out because they were like, we didn't have a choice. And companies like Hypermedia and folks stepped in and they were like, oh, well, we're doing these new tools that are color and it's a scripting language, and you can utilize even newer things like QuickTime VR and stuff like that to like all this emergent stuff.
Right.
That just those were the last nails where this beautiful thing that we grew up on just sort of like it would just shuffled by the wayside because it didn't meet some quarterly earnings
and maybe I'm just like an old guy who's like, I want my HyperCard back, like that's
welcome to the club. Yeah.
So
my
Right. And I know that if they had continued developing, I don't know, but I feel like it's so easy for people who develop these tools to just keep adding feature after feature after feature. And soon it's not the beautiful thing that it started out as. I mean, look at the Mac itself. I feel like, it's become just overburdened with so much stuff. And but I still feel like there's a place for it. I don't know if it could have happened. I don't know if it ever could have existed, but I just still think of my 5-year-old kid
Mhm.
with that tool. Now there's things like Minecraft.
Sure. Yeah. It scratches that same
So
creative itch. Absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
Not to bring up Ghostbusters twice in one show, but
Okay.
it's like
You
HyperCard
must
is
have
like
just
this.
seen it or something.
No, I was a Ghostbusters kid when I was a kid. But it's like lightning in a bottle. Things like
Yeah.
HyperCard, it just
Yeah.
happens at the right place at the right time.
Yes.
It just the right people see it and are just like, this blows me away. Like, I love whatever this is. And so it's it is sad that the legacy of it is just sort of like a very unceremonious, thing. But yeah, you're 100% correct that it could have been it could have been a lot more if people had just had more faith in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that you just say that, or we mentioned today, is that the fact that the Mac was black and white mostly, that was a little bit of a deterrent. Sometimes I used to look at the Amiga next to the Mac, and I really was very attracted to the colors more than the black and white. I mean,
Sure.
I understood
Oh,
the black
yeah.
and white, but yeah, it was. So my question also is, when it came time to port those games to other platforms, what hardware and software tools were used?
Okay, so for the Manhole and Cosmic Osmo, we didn't have anything to do with the ports. We were working with Broderbund back then. They were our publisher, and so they did the ports. And a lot of times those ports were we were very dissatisfied with the ports. I remember seeing the port for the Manhole, and I remember seeing it. I think it was an 8-bit port, and I was just, my heart broke, because there is, drawing the 1-bit graphics. I put a lot of work into that, and then it wasn't tremendous artwork by any standard, but then seeing like the weird colors that were chosen, it kind of like, it just didn't feel right. It was like all bizarre. But and I didn't oversee it at all, and which was a bad decision. It was my inexperience, and it let me know, like, okay, next time this happens, we need to oversee any of this. So then Cosmic Osmo, I don't even remember if there wasn't a port for that. But
I just remember the Manhole ended up on like a ton of platforms. Like, it's on,
yes,
it's in DOS, it's on Mac, it's
Right,
on
right.
FM Towns, it's on TurboGrafx, it's on like anything that was a console at the time. It even came out later for like iOS. So I mean, it was available on a ton of different
Everywhere.
platforms.
Right. So a lot of those platforms at the time, that was all Broderbund sort of released those on all of these different platforms, and it was kind of a little out of our control, or I felt like it was out of our control, and that was pure ignorance, basically. But then for Cosmic Osmo, and this was kind of much later on, we got the rights back for Cosmic Osmo, and because it had been through some different publishers, we got the rights back for Cosmic Osmo. It had been with Activision for a little bit. Manhole had The Manhole had been with Activision too, actually. I'm correcting that. It wasn't Broderbund. It was with Activision. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Then we got the rights back for Cosmic Osmo, and we were going to port it to color. And we started a port to color, and we did all of the backgrounds, and it looked really good. We were very excited about it, and those images all exist somewhere. The only thing that did not exist was the animations had not been done. Otherwise, everything was done. So I don't know. I don't know why that has not been released, but maybe someday it will be. That was many, many years ago. That was like 30 years ago now that work was made.
Yeah.
And I personally oversaw that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Something we were gonna, if there's anything else that you wanted to share about like development or memories about those other games,
Yeah.
we absolutely want to hear that. I know that people talk to you a lot about Myst and things like that, but I love these old things. And actually, if it won't hurt anybody's feelings, I wanted to pitch
Oh my
something.
gosh.
I wanted to pitch something to everybody. There is out on Steam, and it's on good old games and other things like that, but there's a bundle that you can pick up that it's the Manhole, it's Cosmic Osmo, and it's Spelunks, and it's all one little thing. It runs on modern PCs, and it's like 60% off right now. So if you are someone who never got to experience this, or it's like, I don't really have a setup, I can't really play these old games, I mean, it's available. It's available through the Sierra as a publisher, or I'm sorry, Sierra. Oh,
Steam.
Cyan as a publisher.
Oh,
that you can actually get them out there pretty inexpensively, and they're all fun experiences, and it's absolutely a trip down memory lane.
Okay, there is a couple of things that are very interesting, pretty interesting about like the Manhole, for example. We released the Manhole first, and we released it on discs, floppy disks, 5 floppy disks, which is crazy to think about. Then Activision said to us, "Hey, CD-ROMs have just come out. Let's do this on CD-ROMs, and also let's compose music with it." And it didn't seem to fit. But if we compose music, they said it will be the first CD-ROM. And I have no proof for this. Okay. So there's no evidence for this. They said it will be the first CD-ROM ever with music. Now, that's what they said to us at the time. You can go look that up. So they said that. We released. These are 2 separate products. This is the Manhole CD-ROM edition with music. And we said, okay, we'll go write music for that. And they were like little snippets of music in the game. They weren't even worthwhile, really. I'm going to tell you that. It was kind of a little bit of music here, a little bit of music here, a little bit of music here. Then this was also, we released Cosmic Osmo, and it was a product of its own, very short. Then I think it was when we got Cosmic Osmo back and we had it ourselves, that's when we made Cosmic Osmo and the Worlds Beyond the Mackerel. Now, this was, I don't know how many decades ago this was, so I can't remember specifically. If it was when we got it back, I don't know. But we made it. It was a separate product. We added this whole other section to it. But before that, it was just Cosmic Osmo. And I think it was also a disc product. We more than beyond doubled the size. I mean, we made it so much bigger and added music again to it. And but that's when it became this behemoth world. And but when we started Cosmic Osmo, we did something we did not do with Manhole. We did much more planning. We kind of like actually were a little bit more professional about creating a world, so it was a little bit of a different type of creation, world creation for us. We also, at that point, Rand had been living in Texas, small town in Texas. I think he was still working at a bank, and he decided, okay, it's time for him to stop working at this bank. He's going to commit. And I and my then wife, my ex-wife, we moved to this small town, and we like worked in this tiny room, and we worked together on Cosmic Osmo, and then we built that thing together, which was a huge move for us. And so I think that's why it feels a little bit more I know that's why it feels a little bit more cohesive, and it has more of a voice. And because we were just sitting around in a room, and we were just throwing back and forth ideas and having fun and being silly, and at the same time, we didn't know what was going to happen, and we certainly couldn't predict our future, our long-term future. So, so these are stories I haven't told a lot of people, again, because a lot of people aren't interested in Cosmic Osmo.
Well, it's we're your target audience for all of these stories.
All right.
I was going to ask you, maybe you could verify something that's been kind of a long breaking.
All right.
Underline it 6 times. The rumor that Cosmic Osmo was going to be a launch title for Nintendo's ill-fated CD-ROM add-on for the Super Nintendo. Is there any? Does it ring any bells? Or
no, that does not ring any bells at all.
Okay,
no,
because that was the thing back in the day, because of having the Manhole on, like PC Engine / TurboGrafx and stuff like that. Because that was kind of the first CD-ROM add-on for a home console. That was going to be this other game, this especially like the expanded version, that this was going to be one of like the launch titles for, just because it was more than just like game with Red Book audio. It was something that was part of the story. It wasn't just like we're tacking multimedia features on. So that's been a long time rumor about that title. I didn't know if there was really any truth to it.
I mean, if that's true, that's very cool. It could be true. Yeah. I don't know. That sounds amazing.
If I can send this message back in time to Robyn in like 1990, Nintendo is a good get.
Right.
There's this plucky little Japanese card manufacturer, playing card company. There's probably some do-re-mi to be found in a partnership.
Yes, it's funny because like back even during Myst, I was so not impressed with Super Mario. I remember seeing Super Mario and being like, ugh, so dumb. And all of Nintendo is just like, that is so stupid.
A bit, yeah, it was a bit, not really immersive,
right? And it's only because, first of all, we were making something completely different, and I wasn't playing a bunch of games, and so I couldn't bring myself to appreciate it because of how different it was. And I could never have predicted where it was going. And boy, look where it ended up going. but even along the way, as it kind of, I mean, now like Zelda is like my favorite game. Um,
But they
it's,
finally have
it's
the tools for like real storytelling.
yeah,
I mean that
yeah,
first Zelda game, people love it because again there was
yeah,
not a lot of things like
yeah,
that
yeah.
at that time. But it was very much just sort of a you're dropped in the woods and figure it out kind of thing. There's
Right,
not
right,
like a
right,
real clear narrative of it other than keep killing
right,
squids until they give you money,
right.
which is very much like real life.
Yes.
I'll give them credit for that. It's you go
Exactly.
out and you stab some squids, they will just
Right.
like listen, buddy, just
Exactly.
take it.
Right.
I got a wife and kids at home.
It's never.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. So I don't know if maybe I did hear something like that, and I was just like, "What? What is that? I don't know. I'm not interested in that." It would have probably not. I wouldn't have paid attention to it, maybe, or it never happened.
Mhm. Well, it was an ill-fated add-on for the Super Nintendo, and
Yeah.
it ended up it was partnership with Sony and Nintendo to
Hmm.
do this device, and then Nintendo was just like
Hmm.
unconvinced
Hmm.
maybe,
Hmm.
and then you end up with the PlayStation.
Right.
So
Now we were a part of a lot of um, game machines in Japan, but that was
mhm.
later, really. That was, and on a
Yeah.
lot of
Mhm.
game
It was
machines.
like a
But
PC or a 68,000 or
right,
X68,000.
uh,
Yeah, it was on like a ton of Japanese home consoles.
right. I
So
always wondered, how does it work on these game machines? It must be so bad. But you know, um, because it's not that kind of game, you
mhm.
know. But anyway, that it's that's
It's less
another
less of a
time.
game and more of like a artistic mental adventure.
Mhm.
So to put
Yeah,
it on a game machine
exactly.
where you're not interacting with the device in the same way with keyboard and mouse and clicking and moving it around, it's kind of it's like how does it fit? You're using the joystick or the Joy-Con or whatever you want to call it for your machine to try to move around, and it's just like it
Right,
misses like doesn't quite hit the mark.
exactly. I mean, it's like click, click,
Mhm.
click.
Mhm.
I mean, actually, our closest business ally or relationship was with a Japanese company, Sunsoft,
Mhm.
and they, worked with us on. Um, they loved it. They really got a lot out of the Manhole, and
Mhm.
they later worked with us on Myst. Um, so they were very happy, but I never really understood that. I never really understood how it
I
worked.
think yeah, it's one of those things though. It's very easy to be like so close to it and be like, I don't understand like, why this took off or something. But as somebody on the other
Hmm.
end of it, I absolutely understand because it was just there wasn't anything like it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
These were really cool novel experiences that were
Hmm.
transformative for a way to tell stories and transformative in an industry that was like just growing leaps and bounds with new technology. And so many of these things just drove like, what's the next step? Like, what do we do? It's like, okay, well, we've got this interactive fiction title. Now let's throw a soundtrack underneath it. Even if it's just
Hmm.
snippets or
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
throwing there's no rules. We're throwing things at the wall. We're seeing what sticks. And so that's why I find this stuff so exciting.
yeah.
Mhm. So my question for you is now to bring it to what a lot of people are probably here to listen to, and the people that are only here to listen to this, come on, he's done so much
I know.
awesome work. Come on. But elephant in the room. When did the concept of what later became Myst first start?
Okay, so we were still with Activision. And this was after Cosmic Osmo. It might have been during Cosmic Osmo. And we had this idea, and it was called the Gray Summons. And I've actually posted the proposal online, and it was an outline of very closely resembles everything that's in Myst, or the qualities of Myst. We wanted a story. We wanted the player to be the main character of that story. We wanted the player to have to have to solve a mystery, and we wanted the player have to solve like more. Well, there was moral ambiguity, and the player had to resolve that moral ambiguity that was there. So we made this pitch to Activision, and they were like, "No, we don't want to do that. You guys make kids games."
That's it.
So, and at the
Man,
time,
what they just didn't get it, did they? They didn't understand.
And at the time, we were thinking, it was really funny because I had done some little drawings and stuff like that. They were all, 1-bit drawings. That's where the technology was.
Mhm.
They looked like Cosmo. So I was really a little worried that they would say yes, because it was a very ambitious idea. And I remember one of the main characters. I remember this. One of the antagonist was a deer, and you would feel the whole time like this deer was your friend, and then you slowly began to realize over time that no, this is the antagonist of the story, and you had to work against this deer. And so I would have to animate this deer. I was getting a little concerned about that because I'm not an animator, and I have to become an animator. And I remember in the meeting them saying no, and me just kind of feeling like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been in any meetings like that.
Yes.
So then we continued working. We did Spelunks, which sold nothing at all, or next to nothing, and we were in a little bit of we weren't doing too well, and we were getting a little worried, and that's when we got some funding from this company in Japan, Sunsoft, of Japan, and we took a lot of those ideas from our previous game and our previous concept, and we reshaped them into Myst. And when I say we reshaped them, I mean we completely kind of rewrote the concept. And that felt like a fresh start, and there was a lot of new technology, and color monitors were all out there, and that was like, we knew, okay, this is going to be in color. And I didn't have to be concerned with the whole 1-bit thing, and we knew, no, we aren't going to do the whole deer animation thing. That's stupid. Let's make this something easier. Let's film people. This is a better way to go. And we could film people because the technology allowed it. Interestingly enough, though, we were working with Macro Media Director, or Macromind Director was one or the other. And we had to get the video into it. That's okay. We were going to do that. Halfway through the project, or quarter of the way through, QuickTime was invented.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of now stepping past your question. And when QuickTime was invented, bam, it just opened up the doors of the project, and we just started adding animations into everything. I mean, we could now do anything we wanted, and we were able to, because back then it wasn't like there were literally a million games on the market. And we were Apple recognized us as one of the premier game makers. We had the ear of the QuickTime team, which was so nice. So we could go to them and ask for whatever we wanted in QuickTime. And like back then, QuickTime, as they were developing it, it had black borders around it. And so we specifically asked, hey, we need QuickTime with no borders. And they're like, sure, yeah, we'll write it for you. And we also worked hand in hand with the HyperCard team. We would visit them regularly, and so because we were the premier HyperCard product, so that was like a lifesaver. So we were, given all kinds of kind of freebies that they would write into HyperCard. And so then also, so anyway, that's how those kind of came about. I'm kind of just babbling here. Yeah. Man, there's so much I could say. Because when we started into Myst, this is the craziest thing. When we started Myst, I was still thinking, and I've said this a number of times, but it still is crazy. I was still thinking I was going to hand draw it. And at this point, it kind of rolled back around. The 3D tools rolled back around. And I had been playing around with Stratavision, which I'm sure you've all heard of. And I thought I could try Stratavision out for making the islands. And at that point, I gave it a try at a big scale, making kind of larger scale items. And that worked. Which, if it hadn't worked, I don't know what I would have done. I guess I would have hand-drawn Myst. Myst would have been a very different animal. But it worked. And I think that kind of pushed Myst over the edge, because one of the things people loved so much about it is it had this weird look, which is the 3D look. But for me, it made it fun because I had been dreaming of doing 3D stuff. Ever since I was in high school, ever since Omni Magazine, I'd been dreaming of doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, that's a good segue for my question. What were some of your influences for the visual design of Myst? You mentioned Omni Magazine. Was also that an influence?
Oh, yeah. Well, I loved surreal art. But I also, I loved all kinds of art. As I mentioned, I painted as a kid a lot. So a lot of my paintings were surrealistic. I would paint like large 6 by 4 feet, acrylic paintings, and I did airbrush paintings, photorealistic, but surrealism, and I just did that like hours a day. I really got practiced at that, and not that I was very good, but I did practice it a lot, and I feel that what I enjoyed doing is I kind of really enjoyed that sort of you see it a lot. My first inspiration, I think, was sort of that surrealistic style, okay? But then I started reading a lot of, and this is directly before Myst, I started reading a lot of science fiction from, say, the Jules Verne era. Okay. So I may have read all of his books, and what I liked about those books is there's just all the mechanisms and everything. And but when it came time to making the islands, it was fun. I always think of Myst not as a science fiction world, but more as a fantasy world.
Yeah.
And I really had time taking all of these disparate elements and compressing them into a small space. And on Myst, it's like, okay, there's this spaceship, there's this, and now it's all compressed into this very small area. And it feels somehow magical that way. Like, where does all this come from? I like the idea that when you get to Myst Island, you don't know any of that. It doesn't make sense in a way. It's like you don't have an explanation. In a way, I didn't like it later when all of this was explained. I don't like the explanation. I don't think it makes sense. I don't think the explanation makes sense, and I don't even like the explanation in Riven as much. I think in Riven, even though I like the game and even though I like the world, I think it begins to lose some of the magic. And I know there's going to be people who, if they listen to this and they love Riven, and Riven is I'm not saying it's not beautiful, and it's not. It doesn't work. It works, and it's just a little more science fiction. So Riven is not, or Myst is not very. It didn't look very good because of the technology at the time, but
it was top notch at that time. I remember what
at the time. But the pictures are literally like this small.
Yeah,
this small.
But you compare to Amiga or other ones that were top notch at that time, they were really up to par at least. Yeah.
Right. So Riven, I think we went really in a different direction, and that's good. I like the direction, I like the visuals, and I like our design. I think we forgot about the fantastic elements of it, and so that's something I always felt like it's a little disappointing looking back on it. But I mean, I'm not that disappointed.
No, they're great games.
Yeah,
and it's, So, and it's and it does. Riven does. I won't say retcon, but it does kind of change a lot of the perceptions. And you got to admit, there was a lot of like fan. I mean, I'm not telling you anything. You wrote the damn book.
Right.
The book, but it's like all of like the fan fiction that popped up after that first game of people trying to expand and like all the lure or what kids nowadays call the lore stuff, where it's all the where it's like, well, if you investigate this and it's this and it's, but if you look at it like this and it's, but if you go and you investigate, it's like he's got like your character. It's like you have all these opulent sort of things, but then there's like this tragic character underneath where it's like his brother was keeping him down and he's got potentially substance abuse problems and things like that. And it's and there's a lot of people that play those games and just got like this very surface level experience, like somebody doing a speed run that didn't get any of that. And it's like, what a disservice. And then played Riven and felt like, there's like a lot to this world and I'm not ready for this.
Right. Well, indeed. Yeah, I mean, that was the number one complaint about Riven back in the day was that it was too hard to play and they couldn't finish it, and they didn't get off the first island, and that was always a little disappointing to hear.
Two words for those folks. Get good. Please. That's it. Get good.
Oh.
We got a 900 number set up. there's beautiful
Good, okay.
beautiful ladies here waiting to answer all of your Riven questions.
Great, good.
It was the 90s, so it wasn't that it was like USA Up All Night, and there would be like some talk to the ladies of music video, and it's like,
Hey, there were hint books. There were hint books.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I went to a toy show today, and there was someone that had the Riven hint book. Like,
wow.
Yeah, like they still had it.
Okay.
It was like it was stuck between a guide for a couple of Sierra titles. And I think a hint guide for Seventh Guest or something like that.
You know, I think the idea of the stranger might have come from one of the hint books, because it's not something we ever came up with ourselves. It's not something we ever promoted, but I'm not sure. It either came from, I don't know, but I remember reading it, I thought, in one of the hint books. It never came from us. So if you figure out different, let me know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but it is weird how the community just picked up and ran with your story, and a real expanded universe that exists.
It's very
strictly
it's
in people's head canon on all of these.
It built a life of its own. It's remarkable how it's built a life of its own. You know, the language, everything. It's
Oh, there's like, fonts out there. There's the official font that was used in all the titles, but there's like people that have made their own fonts even before that existed.
Totally.
So that way you could print and do your own stuff. It's a real rabbit hole. How deep those fan communities go, because just as doing research for the episode, it was like just some of the stuff where people are like especially like Usenet articles and things that are like archived. So it's like old media is like people were just like really ravenous for like, you know, any little thing. It's like, what about this? If you do this, and it's like on my machine, if you click this, you can wrap around and do this thing. And it's like, and so it's, you almost hear like some like sequence break, like speed run kind of stuff too. And then there's other people are like, well, if you do that, you're going to miss the whole, like, yeah, you'll miss this plot point.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Yeah.
Like don't just go straight to the main building and put the code in. Don't do that.
Right.
I mean, right. Somebody might have told you that on AOL, but don't do it.
Right. Yeah.
So, well, let me ask you this. You'd mentioned a minute ago, because you were like, we're doing this stuff, but it's like a postage stamp. See you in a second, Joe. It's like a postage stamp playing the little thing, and it's like, when was the point where it was apparent that this was based on all this media and stuff and the music and all this art and all that? When was the point where you absolutely realized that this was going to be a CD-ROM project? And was there ever a time where you were like, wait a minute, we've gone too far, and now we got to consider manufacturing costs? Because there's been some other people we've talked to where they were like that we hit a wall where we were going to have to go to a second CD, and the publisher either said no or said absolutely, because it'll be like a selling point where it's like it's so big it takes 2 CD-ROMs.
Okay, are you talking about for Riven or Myst?
I'm talking about for Myst.
Okay, for Myst, that was hard, because it was hard to fit all the data onto one CD.
Yeah.
So CD-ROMs were not really that popular, and there weren't many players out there. So that was an issue. But we were selling other products for CD-ROM, and so our publisher in this United States, which was Broderbund at that point, they wanted to do a CD-ROM, and the stipulation at that point in time it was kind of an implied stipulation, was let's fit all this data onto one CD-ROM. I don't think any of us would have thought to put it onto more than one, and we just needed to fit all the data onto one CD-ROM, and then to line it up in a way on the CD-ROM so that it would quickly load. So Rand, it was something Rand had to do by hand, is figure out exactly where to put what data from the game. So when you're going, say, from this location to this location, it's next to each other. So here's this bit of data, and then this bit of data. It's next to each other. So when you go from, say, this location, when you go from this part of the island to this part of the island, the boat to the library, it just has to go
move a little bit.
It just moves a little bit, and so he had to do that for the whole CD-ROM.
Wow.
And that was like a whole. That was this entire chore, to compress all of this as much as possible, and then to make it as just work. Which you don't really have to do that as much these days. We don't think about stuff like that, It just comes from online, goes onto our discs, whatever. But that was really fascinating.
Of course.
Yeah. But when we were doing Riven, I don't know if he had to do the same thing for Riven, but we did it on 5 CDs. Was the first release. We knew we would eventually get it down to the one CD, which was those CDs that came out later. Now I'm not even remembering what they were. What were they called? The
like a zip disc kind of thing, or
DVD.
DVDs. We would get it down to one DVD. Yeah. So wow. Okay, so we knew that the DVD, we'd get it down to one DVD. But I was also going to say, because this is the part of your question, Ron, is that when we put it on that one CD ROM, we were going to release it. Of course, the publisher had no complaint. It worked well on a CD-ROM, and they were happy about that. So I think, though, what no one expected is that it would start selling the CD-ROM drives. Like, people would go out and buy CD-ROM drives to play this game. That was that's what blew everybody away. And then even above that people would buy computers to play the game. It was this phenomenon that would drive computer sales. And I mean, our publisher could not be happier, Now, the next one that came along, when it was on 5 CD-ROMs, I think they were they were bugged by that. We tried to make the breaks at very intelligent places. We knew, like I said, it was going to be on one DVD. And so, but still, to this day, I kind of feel like, oof. Oh, man. I mean, from a pure marketing point of view, boy, that's not great. If you're playing a game and then it tells you to put it in the next disc, great.
Well, it could be Secret of Monkey Island for the Amiga, which looks great, but it's literally like 9 discs or 9 floppies or something. So people were calling it like the carpal tunnel game. So it's like you're constantly swapping discs to play. And there's even a joke in the Amiga version where you're out in a certain point of the game, you click like an object or a thing in the game. It tells you to insert like disc 15 or something, like way down, like that there's no disc for that. So don't worry. People were trolling users forever ago.
People were, out. Things were more like that back then because a lot of floppy based stuff was, on multiple discs.
Yeah.
So I think people were a little used to it, but because Myst hit such a large base, we were selling to people who were like used to putting on a record or
Yeah.
something.
Mhm.
They weren't used to like changing out the discs. What? They have to change out the disc? It was not really fun. But fortunately, then the DVDs came out quickly after that.
Mhm.
You know,
It could be worse. You could have played the CDI version where you just like you would just like click to go to the next island, and then it would just be like, I got time to go to dinner.
Yeah.
Go to dinner, come back. That's a thing with the console. That's not like anybody's specific fault other than Philips.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So, oh, were you going to say something? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
cut you off.
no. Mm-mm.
What was some of the early feedback you received about Myst?
Well, it's interesting because the first feedback we ever received was from a game magazine, and I'm going to correct that. The very first feedback was at a what do you call it? The rooms where you look through the one-way glass.
like a sort of one of those,
Focus group.
yeah.
Focus group.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you. So focus group testing, and so this was a new experience. Neither of us had ever done this before, and we sat behind the glass, and they had one group come in, and they were like younger people. They had all played the game, and they asked them what they thought, and they all were like really positive. They all liked it. They was like they had not played anything like it, and that was like Rand and I looking at each other like, this is crazy. We might have. This is like seriously the first time we thought we might have a game that could really do well. This was really positive feedback. They left. The next group came in. They didn't understand it at all. It was an older group of people, maybe like in their 40s, 50s,
Mhm.
and some of them were so negative.
Mhm.
And
Oh.
maybe they brought the whole group down. I don't know. Maybe they just all
This
hated
isn't pinball.
Yeah.
it.
I was gonna say, like,
Right.
why did they bring in the Amish?
Yeah,
just-
it's like
They're like, well,
right.
first of all, English. I don't appreciate your
Right.
tone.
Right. And anyway, we just then again, after that, we are kind of like, oh, okay, maybe it's not good. Oh, but we really didn't get any. We didn't know. Then our next major bit of feedback it was reviewed by this computer game magazine. I don't remember the name of it. And if I did, I would tell you. So the review, they tore it apart. They
Oh.
hated it. And it was really discouraging because I thought, we're done for. That's it. This is because we didn't think it was going to sell to anybody but gamers.
Mhm.
So this is what gamers are going to think of it. They're going to hate it. This is the end, you know. But then after that, it started to sell, and I mean, it was I think there was a couple of reviews in like Mac World and Mac User, and they had always liked art. They had liked, Manhole, Cosmic Osmo. They're kind of on our side. Mac User had just given us an award, the Derek von Alstein Rising Star Award, about a couple of years earlier. And so they kind of were waiting to see what we would do. And then both those magazines gave us glowing reviews, and we felt better, but we knew, okay, well, they're Mac magazines. And then it started to sell in the Mac world because it came out on Mac first, started to sell on Macs, and we started to feel pretty good about that. And then when it started to sell for PCs, then it was like, oh, what is happening? It was a whirlwind. We were just blown away. So,
yeah.
Mhm. I think something that the focus group failed to capture, if I can kind of go back a little bit,
yeah,
is that you guys were capturing a completely new market of game player that just didn't exist before because the kinds of games that those types of
Mhm.
people would like didn't exist yet. And you guys made it. A kind of
right.
an adventure game that had some like story elements to it, that had a world,
Awesome.
a concept, a built up, universe to explore. And when you're looking at these gamers that are like used to Mario Brothers, and then you set them down in front of Myst, they have their own preconception that they're bringing to the table, and their conception's wrong.
Yeah.
Because they're not
Right,
they're not your
true.
market, right? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Your market
Yeah.
is more people like me who like world building and story element games where you kind of you take an active role, but you like to sit back and kind of like see what's happening. It's not like action, go fast, win, lose, win,
True.
lose. It's more like
Mhm.
what's behind the next door.
As a plan of Formula One racing games, I found Myst highly disappointing. I don't.
Yeah.
Where are the crashes? Where are the people with hard to pronounce Italian last names? Fix
We
these
should have put
issues.
some Italian names in there for you. I'm sorry about that.
I think it touches a
one
little
of the
bit on.
one of the things about the those people who tested it for us, we actually in that room when they tested us, we also had the marketing guy asking them, well, what do you like for a subheading, or I don't know what it's called, the little marketing blurb, the surrealistic adventure that will become your world.
Yeah.
And this is an aside. And he ran that one by them. And Rand and I didn't know about that. And so he was giving a few of them, and he ran by a surrealistic adventure that would become your world. I remember this specifically. And I remember seeing that and just thinking, no, please, that's so stupid. We're not going with that. And I mean, all these years later, and even just a couple of years later, it's like, okay, yeah, that has grown on me. I like that. It works. But at the time, oh. So it's funny how anything can change. But I don't remember their response. Of course, I only remember my own response at the time.
But yeah, like Ron says that you open a new market of people, a new market of users or players. Because I remember that time when I saw it, I was drawn by the graphics. I really am. I'm a visual guy, so I saw the graphics on the box, and I was like, "Damn, this is amazing! I've never seen this in a Mac." And I bought it, and when I began to play it, my wife that doesn't play games and doesn't use the computer that much, she wanted to play because she likes puzzles and she likes mysteries, and this was part of it. So you bring people that were not really computer game users to use it, because this was not only a game, but it was like a puzzle, several things at the same time that never have done before, so it was.
Yeah, that's so cool. And the thing is, and I always was a little bit of a asshole about this, but I always said that I wasn't a gamer. Because I didn't at the time back then. I there weren't many games back then at all, and I didn't play games. And so our experience creating Myst really came. Rand was a little bit more of a gamer, but our experience creating that world came from reading books, watching films, whatever it was. It was more of a.
But you see, you attract other kind of people that normally they wouldn't be using that.
I think that's why it ended up attracting an audience outside a gamer audiences,
Right.
because we came from a world that was not gaming, and now that doesn't mean. I mean, I am a fan of gaming now, because games have really moved in a different direction than they were back then. So, but back then, of course, we've already talked about it. They were kind of 8-bit flat, very different things. But yeah.
Well, that becomes my question: is what was the success of the game a surprise to you?
A surprise, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! I mean, I've said it. I don't know how many times I've said it. That we were hoping we would make enough money to be able to do another game, because Cyan was just holding on. We were about to go out of business, and we got enough funding to make Myst, and we hoped, if we can make enough money, we can maybe make a sequel. That would be so good if we could make that amount of money, because it would pay our salaries to do that. And then this explosion, which is, that kind of explosion never happens.
Yep.
It never, ever happens. The fact that it happened to us is luck. It's the right place, right time. Now, we worked really hard. I will say the things that we did right is we were in the right place at the right time, and we worked really hard. But I'll never be at that right place and right time again in my life. Yeah. It's just like there was a lot of things that came together for that to happen. And for people who kind of, when I hear people think, oh yeah, you do once in a while hear people who kind of made it and they think they're talented. It's like, yeah, people are talented, but there's a lot of people who are talented, and it's just it didn't happen at the right place and the right time for them. There's so many people who are talented in this world, and they just doesn't come together, because all of the timing doesn't work.
Meeting the right person and the right decade when the right technology was around.
Oh my gosh!
This and that and the other, and the economic this and the
we were
that and all those little threads. Yeah.
We were so lucky. We were so lucky. I mean, we had a vision. How many other people have visions? We worked hard. How many other people work hard?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So it's all aligned, like they say.
It was aligned. The stars were aligned.
Yeah. Yep. Good luck. Yeah.
Speaking of lightning in a bottle and repeating lightning, was the development cycle on Riven more challenging than that of Myst?
The development pressure. No. The development cycle on Riven, yes, was a lot more challenging, but that was mostly because we made it more. I'm going to say because there were things that were easier, things that were harder. I think as the company grew, we were learning how to manage a growing company. That is the main part that made it harder. I think like going back and doing that again, I would really be able to, stay on top of that. The hardest part of that was like managing or understanding my relationship with Rand and how to keep that secure. Because as we grew, that there started to be some fractures there. And rather than like at all costs keeping that tight and secure, those fractures, grew, and we started to grow apart. And at all, that was the worst thing that could have happened, I think, in the company. So, and that's what made Riven harder to work on, because, and also Myst was a joy to work on. It was fun to work on. Whenever anything's fun to work on, it's going to be better. You know what? I don't even care if the product's not as good. It's always better if it's more fun. And Riven was not as fun. It was arduous, and so it could have been more fun, and that would have made the product better. Yeah, definitely. So, cool. Yeah,
I hear you.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's a slog, and when it ceases to be fun, it ceases to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I totally understand that.
Definitely for creative ventures. Creative ventures, I think, need to remain fun, but also, I mean, obviously, it's going to be hard work. Any kind of creative venture is going to be a lot of hard work, but so those two things can go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think the legacy is of Myst and Riven when you compare it to contemporary CD-ROM adventures like The Seventh Guest or 11th Hour or Phantasmagoria, things like that also leveraged video and music in kind of new storytelling ways?
Well, I think they're all part of that same family of games that came along at that time, and they all kind of fed one another and they all grew together. So they're all, I remember, at that time, all those games names were all being thrown around, and we were all kind of like appearing in magazines, or I would see imagery of all of these games. And so I think anybody who was following games was kind of aware of every single name you just mentioned,
I mean, all these titles came out within a few years of one another.
Right.
It was
Yeah. It was very tight.
A very exciting time. For all of this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, I definitely feel like, and there's a few others too that you didn't mention, but we're also, I was aware of some others. And I also kind of felt like, oh, well, is that going to be, I wonder what that one's like. I wonder if it's, and they were coming out, a lot of them before Myst. And I felt like, oh, is it going to be basically what Myst is? Probably. I mean, it's probably what Myst is, because I'm going to be perfectly honest. I didn't play any of them. I never played any of them because it kind of, I didn't want it to get in my headspace.
Right.
And I just, and I think Chuck Carter, I think he played them. And he would figure out what they were like and play them, and he would tell me, "Oh, Robyn, you got to play this," but I never did. I just didn't want to go there. So, but I was very aware of all of those, and I was very aware that we were all sort of like, sibling games. And I saw them. I saw the relative successes they had, and so I was very assured that when Myst came out, it was going to have the exact same success that those games had.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and not just in kind of the multimedia stuff. I mean, 93 is like a huge year for gaming. I mean, that's the year that Doom came out. It's the year that
yes,
like arcade stuff like Mortal
absolutely,
Kombat 2.
absolutely
I mean, it
right.
was like
Yeah.
LucasArts released like a metric ton of games that year. Like Link to the Past on the so between home consoles and arcade and PC and all of these emergent sort of like home appliance as a entertainment device, so like CDI and things like that. It's just like, oh my gosh, just I mean, you were talking about like how it was just right place, right time, lightning in a bottle kind of thing.
Yes.
That's three Ghostbusters references. The trifecta. But the but just so much was happening that year. The fact that anything succeeded in that climate is just amazing. And so it's like it's 50% of everything is luck, and the other 50% is fate, and skill is like some tiny fraction of a percent. But but it's just so amazing that this thing happened. And so I think that part of the like the legacy of this is that it reached people on such a like a base level that there were people that were just looking for this experience. And there were other things out there. There were action games, there were first person shooters, there were comical point and click adventure games and stuff, that against all that other competition, that Myst came in and was just like this very cinematic, and I'm happy to use that word, it's a very cinematic experience that made you think, that wasn't just like, you know, there is a little bit of people that will say, oh, there's some moon logic to the puzzles and stuff. It ain't a Sierra amount of moon logic. And there are very few instances where you will be punished for doing something. I mean, like, it's more there are in-game scenarios, of course, but they feel earned. I feel like I earned getting trapped in a book somewhere.
You don't have to apologize for saying moon logic. I mean, I agree with you. And I believe that we hurried through the design of the puzzles. I think some of the puzzles suck. I'll say that. I have played back through it recently when they just re-released the game, and I was really, really disappointed that they did not fix those old sucky puzzles.
If you had fixed them, people would have been madder than having to read a walkthrough. I don't know.
I think
just two options: original puzzle version.
Right. The Channelwood Age. I mean, some of the stuff on Channelwood is very cool, but like, I don't need to go into this detail except to say some of the stuff is really bad, and same thing on. I mean, some on Myst Island. I mean, there's a lot of things throughout the game where it doesn't make sense, and I feel like it would have been a great time to kind of reboot all of Myst, and so it was. I did find it disappointing, but it was still cool to have a whole new world to walk through in real time.
Yeah,
and I think they did a great job of that. So,
cool.
Yeah.
So the difficult question here.
Yeah.
Was it difficult to leave Cyan to explore other creative opportunities?
Oh. That's really a difficult question. That's really difficult.
Sorry.
I mean, there's so many different tiers to that question. It's not just a yes or no question or maybe or um, it's and I'll say oh boy.
We don't want to get you
Sorry.
in, we don't want to get you in
if you,
trouble. But
yeah,
it's
if
just
you
that
don't feel you can
If
answer,
you don't,
no,
yeah,
it's
it's
we're not
okay.
forcing you to
It's
answer.
good.
You know what? I'll say yes. Of course, it was difficult. Of
Yeah.
course,
Of course.
that's
yeah.
the simple answer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
It's a company that I helped build for 10 years of my life. I spent with my brother, and it hurt a lot to leave it. And so no one has ever asked me that. That's a great question.
well, it's part of your journey as
Yeah,
as an
yeah.
artist. So it's
Mhm.
not trying to gotcha or not trying to be rude, but it's just it's one of those
Or make
things
you feel
because
bad.
it's one of those things where like death is part of growth, and how
Right.
you and I mean, as somebody that works in some very brutal industries with a lot of rejection, um to be able to kind of like look at that and be like, yes, it's we're gonna go on to bigger brighter, we're gonna do some other things, we're gonna explore stuff, I'm now gonna have the time to explore whatever this thing is that I want to do next. And which brings me to my question, which
Mhm.
is, has filmmaking always been a passion of yours?
Um,
I mean, you've been like in charge of like some very cinematic experiences and some visual storytelling and all of that.
yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Um, I would say that. I, First of all, I would say that as a kid, I'm going to say I don't know how to define as a kid, but uh, I'd say my first passion was art, which I've mentioned, and then I had a passion of music, which I
Yep.
utilized throughout the games, and that was around like high school, and which was it was kind of convenient because I could compose, and I never knew I would be able to use that. But um, writing stories was a passion
Mhm.
of mine. Okay. Um, I think if I ever in a million years could have conceived that filmmaking could be something I could do, I would, of course. I mean, I directed one film,
Mhm.
and it was the funnest thing I've ever done in my life.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so it was invigorating. It was just every part of it, there from pre-production, production, post-production, the editing, writing the music. It was just incredibly,
Mhm.
um, it's a lot like writing music.
Mhm.
When you edit it together, it's very even the tools are very similar to editing tools.
Mhm.
And I mean, I had a blast with doing that. I've edited some other things for other people, and it's very, oh my gosh, I love doing that part of it.
Nice.
But yeah, I've always loved film. I think like everybody loves film,
Yeah.
but I never
Mhm.
as a kid, I never thought to myself, oh, I'm going to do film someday.
Mhm.
I
I
will.
didn't either, and now I'm a
Yeah.
successful under 5. Successful under 5. Or 30 words, whichever comes first. But
I did at one point. This is a kind of a funny story. Is that when I was 7 years old, I did go to see um, a Disney film. forget what it was. It might have been Sleeping Beauty. I don't remember. Okay, yeah, Sleeping Beauty.
Mhm.
And I walked out of the theater, and I knew I made a decision right then that I was going to be a Disney animator.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to be
it never happened.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I had the same dream as a kid,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
only my story was
Yeah.
I went to go see I speaking of a contemporary movie when I was a kid, I went to go see The Rescuers, and I
Yeah.
came out and I was like, number 1, I'm going to be a Disney animator, and number 2, I'm immediately going to get a prescription for antidepressants. Like in that order.
Oh my gosh.
And it's never stopped me.
That's
Anytime
great.
I go to any of the parks, I will go to the Art of Animation, and I will go through, I will sit there. I'll be like, hey, you guys have fun riding Space Mountain. I'm going to be sitting here drawing with like a Disney animator, because they got that Art of Animation thing. You just sit there and they'll be like, all right, we're going to draw Sully from Monsters Inc., or we're going to draw Lilo and Stitch, or we're going to draw something. And it's like, and so they sit there and they will show you how to draw the thing, and you can, and it's like a 15-minute session, and you can just go through. They don't care. You go through until you're like, oh, I've drawn Timon and Pumbaa like 9 times now. I guess I can go do something else.
Well, that brings to my question. As a composer, what's the most difficult thing about scoring a film or interactive fiction project?
Well, I would say nothing. I love composing. I like when composing for me is a completely different part of my brain. And it's this part of my brain where I sit down and I just like, it's pure bliss.
Yeah.
And so I just feel it. And but I will say, since you asked specifically most difficult, every once in a while, I will get stuck on something, and I can't find my way through it. And that's the most difficult, is I just can't hear what's happening. I can't, I'll look at something, I'll look at the video, or I'll look at, with the game, and I just like, I can't hear what's it's supposed to be playing there. So I will give you an admission. I will. People will hate me for it, but I will admit something to you. I was writing the music for. There was a couple of new tunes in the new Myst, like 5 new songs in the new Riven soundtrack. I'm sorry, the new Riven soundtrack.
Okay.
And most of them went really well. I compose like I normally compose, and it was weird because I had to go back and try to reach back and compose similar to that, which is not a way I compose anymore, the way I was composing back then. But I was composing more in a style I compose now. So I was doing music for those blue tunnels, if any of you have been to them. And for one of those pieces, I was composing like a little melody, and then I had to do a counter melody to I think a harp. And I wanted it to play exactly against the melody. And I sat there, I kept trying counter melody after counter melody after counter melody, and I could not get it. Now I'm admitting something to you, okay? It's about AI.
Oh.
So, I finally took a picture of my screen, my DAW. I just took a picture of the whole screen, and then I sent it to ChatGPT. I said, come up with a counter melody for this.
Did it just give you the amen break? Did it just because like here is a completely original thing that I have just created from whole cloth?
So it knew. I told it which melody, okay, and it just like told me the notes. It just gave me the notes,
There you go.
told me the notes, and I just wrote them in. I mean, it was perfect. I was like, why didn't I think of that? It's so perfect. So I'm
Thank
not
you,
that
Mozart,
bad of a
for feeding the
composer, right?
algorithm.
Yeah, but that was the only time. Okay, that was the only time I used AI in my composing for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, I use Salieri PT all
Yes.
the time.
Okay.
Salieri PT.
It works. It's super pissy about everything, but it just
Grazie, signori.
Oh my gosh! Well, I did something crazy today. I'm a huge fan. I love it, but I hate it. Of AI, it's crazy. I made a podcast, and it did these two people talking back and forth. Have you seen this kind of thing? Oh my gosh, it totally blew me away. Oh man.
Like you gave it a script and it just like made two people.
I didn't give it a script. I didn't do anything. I told the subject matter. And this is this brand new technology that came out yesterday from Google. And it's just two people talking about the subject matter I wanted to talk about. And it's just seamless. I mean,
Great.
they're talking.
All our
Guys,
future
hey,
live streams can
your
just be
jobs-
that.
Right. Your jobs are over.
Yeah, we can tell them to
Mhm.
make us
Right.
talk.
Right. Next week, it'll be your faces. Okay.
Yeah. What a
Oh.
time saver for me, though. I'm just thinking that Ron PT will just like it's fine. It'll cover all my voiceover gigs. It'll handle all my. It'll drive to Texas to be in a movie. It's going to be so great.
Oh, it's crazy. Oh, and I am not publishing this podcast, just so you know. I'm not publishing any.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I just did it just to see what it would do.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
just gonna
Mhm.
I'm just waiting to see the VODs on YouTube of
It's
just making garbage with
crazy. It's insane.
this.
Anyway,
That said, I have one final curated question for you, and that is this. Are you working on anything that you can talk to our audience about that they can go and follow online, or any little secret project you want to hit at for people to get excited about?
Yeah, I have pretty much finished a sci-fi book. I been working on it for a few years. I've now decided to go back and reconfigure some things. So that's where I'm at in that. I'm very excited about it. I just want to kind of hold off talking about it until it's, rewritten.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I'm sure folks can follow you like online and check out your website and things like that to just keep abreast of the latest.
I'm on Blue Sky, so Tinselman. Tinselman is where you can find me on Blue Sky. Cool. And on my website.
Sorry, everybody. Well, everybody very quickly goes to Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Following
Tinselman. Are you the guy that runs that Christmas blog? I'm just joking.
Cool. I'm looking at your art now, as we can obviously see.
Oh yeah,
loving it. Yes. I love
that tower. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. Cool. Awesome sauce.
So absolutely
Yes,
give Robyn a follow over there.
Yep. Do it, or Joel will be mad at you. Yep. Cool. Well, we have some questions from the audience.
Great.
We have, looks like we have 14 questions. So the ones we decide to choose to ask are going to depend on what your energy level is and how long you feel to keep going.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with some of the funny questions because I like some of the humor questions. Our friend Gutbomb asks, can someone please explain to me why Taylor Swift is in the thumbnail of this video? My 9-year-old daughter needs to know. Ron, do you want to take that one?
Me too. I need to know, where is she? Where is she?
She's
This
one
is
of
what
my
we call
best
clickbait,
friends.
folks.
Clickbait. She's one of my best friends, of course.
She'll be here swiftly. Just saying.
Yeah, right. Just keep.
Well, that's
keep
a Godmom's
listening.
daughter, you know.
I have a follow-up question from Gutbomb. And he asks, were you involved with the Myst VR remake? If so, do you have any stories? If not, have you tried it and do you have any impressions?
I was not involved with the Myst VR. No. And as far as impressions, I thought it was pretty good. I mentioned earlier what my hopes for it would have been, but otherwise I thought it was perfectly good.
Cool.
Yeah. I was involved with the Riven remake in the beginning. I was involved with some design of kind of the rearrangement of some puzzles or with particular puzzles. And for example, the whole idea of a number of things. But then I did not oversee any of the design of those things. And there were a lot of things done that I did not have anything to do with. But I was kind of involved to an extent.
Cool. I am going to do these two questions back to back because they're kind of the same question from two different folks. One is from Brankus Creations. We know him as Bruce. He's one of our friends in Australia. So he's watching in the middle of his workday from Australia right now. He's asking, have you played any Myst style games made by other companies? You kind of already touched on this. And if so, any standouts in your opinion? And then Gutbomb asks, did you play Obsidian? It clearly took a lot of inspiration from Myst. What did you think? So combine those thoughts as you will.
Okay. Obsidian, did you say, or Abduction?
Obsidian.
Obsidian. I started to play. Wait, which one's Obsidian? Obsidian, I started to play. And I didn't like it. So there. That is my answer.
There you go.
I spent probably an hour and a half on it. And then I was just like, I'm not playing this anymore.
I'm getting all the Gutbomb questions out of the way because his are all lovely and I love they're great questions. When making Cosmic Osmo, did you imagine that it would be the timeless classic the way that it is? My 9-year-old daughter loves to play around in there on my SE30 in 2025 and it sparks inspiration.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
That's so cool.
I was trying to tell you, man. It means
I
a
would
lot to
love
folks.
to take Cosmic Osmo. I mean, people probably wouldn't like this. They love the 1-bit graphics, but other people, I want it to be like a real-time game, or I think it would be cool if it was like redone. I don't know. I feel that could be a reimagining of it. Could be something cool if it was done well. That's the trick, if it was done well. But that's cool. No, of course I didn't imagine that. I'm shocked. And I love to hear that.
You've inspired so many people over the years, I think, with the creations that you've made. That
Definitely.
Yeah, that's my statement.
Wow.
I had more to add, and it just went. Nope, that's we're gonna end that statement right there. I'm going to skip ahead to a question from Kat. I'm trying to skip around and look at things that were not necessarily exactly missed questions. Now we're gonna do Eric's question first. I like this question first. Eric says, and Eric was one of the folks I was gonna invite to be a secondary guest host tonight because he is a HyperCard developer. So I think
in 2025, a HyperCard developer.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
New game coming out this year.
He's making a game.
Wow, cool. All right.
So, did you find that you were constantly referencing your past literature and movies from your youth while authoring? I think he means while working on literally any of the projects you were working on.
So authoring the games. Is that what he means?
Yeah, because we were speaking about the games when that question.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, so Myst is from the game is Mysterious Island. It was taken from Jules Verne's Mysterious Island. And so much of even that book, Mysterious Island, is about a bunch of guys, sorry, ladies, who were trapped on an island together. And there's not a spaceship, but there's a submarine on the island. And, it's just, there's one volcano on the island, and it's just the sensibility. As I read that book, I think it was the last book from Jules Verne that I read right before we came up with the design for the game.
Nice.
And I was on the phone with Rand, and it was like, "Hey, what about the title? What about the word? What about mist? Just the word mist that represents mist or mystery." And then, and I told him about the book really fast, and we liked the idea of putting it on an island. But yeah, I mean, all the time while we were making the game, we were referencing,
Past, yeah.
Whether it be small little things, like the spaceship. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I was a huge fan of Tintin.
Yeah,
that spaceship is right out of Tintin. So yeah, all the time.
Cool. Now I'm going to do Kat's question. Kat is a longtime friend of the channel. She's a huge Apple II nerd. And she says she doesn't know if it's been asked, but what gave you the idea to just drop the player into the game with no real directions or real idea of what you're supposed to do?
Well, I think this was essential. This is like the one most important thing we wanted to do is we wanted the player to feel like they were a real person. They were not the stranger. They were a real person dropped into a world, and whether magically or not, but they were just there. What would you do if you were a real person? Now you are a real person in this world, magically dropped here. What do? You have to use your intelligence, whatever other tools you've been given. You don't have any instructions. What do? Your only instructions are whatever instructions you find while you're playing there. And we really disliked playing D&D and being given all of the instructions and dexterity and intelligence. And no, you have none of that. It's just you and whatever you find on the island. And we really wanted to see if we could pull that off. We also disliked any other games we had come across where you get instructions. We'd certainly seen those kinds of games. So that was the goal.
You know what? You're like, you get dropped on this island. You're just naked and afraid. What do? And I'm thinking the first thing I do is be thankful that there's no in-game timer.
Yes.
Said I get as long as I need to be as stupid as I am.
Well, that was the other thing is, of course, obviously by this point there had been plenty of games with timers and death, because arcades had been out, and both those things exist because they want you to put another quarter in, but they had then for some reason moved over to computer games, and so this was we made the decision like no, you just have no death, no timers, nothing, just
Yeah.
The achievement is whatever you take from the game as you play.
That's right. Yeah.
right.
And again, I appreciate that because I'm somebody from the old school Sierra, like you got punished because you didn't click the mouse the right way.
Right.
Kind of games where it's nice to just occasionally have a puzzle experience that doesn't feel punitive. And that is, and I think that's part of the appeal too, especially for, and let me just throw it out there, older gamers, like people that are like, I'm not into Twitch gaming. I just want to like, or as that used to be termed, where it's like the high speed interaction kind of stuff. It's like, I want to sit here. I'm going to drink a cup of coffee and I'm going to think about this puzzle and use my gray matter to solve this instead of just like, how fast can I, kill a Keiko demon? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. My decaying gray matter.
Ron, would you like to choose one of the next questions?
I'll
give you an opportunity to pick one.
Yeah, absolutely. What influenced and inspired you when writing the Myst soundtrack? What was the process like?
Yeah, this was the first soundtrack, obviously. So, I mean, even though I did music before this for like Cosmic Osmo, it wasn't really a soundtrack. For this, Broderbund, I'll quickly just go through this, even though many of you have heard it. Broderbund had asked us to write a soundtrack for Myst, and we weren't going to, and we believed it should just be all sounds of nature. And because we wanted it to be, like I said, as if the player is really there experiencing this world. And Broderbund said, well, please, no, we think it needs to have a soundtrack. And we were like, no. And they said, well, we're going to hire somebody to write a soundtrack.
Oh.
And we're like, no, we'll write one.
Right.
And we're going to prove to you, Broderbund, that it doesn't work. That said, we wanted to do the best job we could in our experiment, in writing the best experimental piece to prove to them it wouldn't work, and to ourselves. We really wanted to try it honestly and see. And so we did that. We wrote a piece, and I'll tell you then now what inspired me in that first piece is I went to a place, and I think it was the planetarium, is just being in the planetarium and looking around and just feeling it more than anything else, and which is what I did in every location, is just try to feel the location. And whether it was a bass or a piano, I start usually on either one, and it doesn't matter if I end up using either of those instruments and playing what I'm feeling, and it's almost a direct visual to instrumentation. And so then going back to after I had recorded the entire soundtrack or of that one location, I started to realize, oh, this is maybe going to work as a in the game. Like maybe Broderbund's right about this. And we then I sent it to Rand as usual because he was in a different location, and we both realized that this was the way we were going to go. We were going to include a soundtrack for the game. And of course, Broderbund was thrilled.
Yeah.
That's great. We're coming up on 2 hours. Why don't we pick like 2 more?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see. We want to keep one of our wonderful funny ones for last, and there are a couple. I'm thinking that I think Bruce's funny one we'll keep for last. So let's do. I think this one is a good one. Vector Funk asks, do you recall any rejected Myst ideas that were not creatively or technically feasible for the time, which you experimented with?
Well, yeah, there's a few of them. There was creative ideas that I'll give you a creative idea that just was. There was a lot of creative ideas that just didn't make it to the cutting board because they evolved, or they iterated into other ideas. Like, for example, you put your hand on the page of a book and link into another world. Well, originally we had this idea of actually finding keys in other worlds and bringing them back, and then putting the key into a keyhole that was on the book. I have drawings in those original drawing, tablets that I have, and they're like actual keyholes in the books. And it's just ridiculous to me. Like, why would we have done that? Also, one of the, I'll just translate directly, I'll move directly into a technical limitation, which was we wanted the little black square on each of the pages to be much bigger. And then we had this whole idea that wouldn't it be cool if when you put your hand on the book, it envelops you and you kind of fall into it. And as much as possible, we wanted to at least imply that a little bit. That's why in the beginning, when you see that little square, you see there's your almost like a drone shot of the island. We wanted you put your hand on the book, and then the book kind of, you're falling headfirst into this other world, or it falls around you, or something of that nature. And we thought, okay, you know what? We can't do that now, but in further editions, that's what we're going to do. That's what this is going to become. A link is much more profound than this little thing that's happening now. So that never happened, but again, just a technical limitation. Yeah, there's a lot more.
It's pretty great.
Final question. This one is a huge hardball from left field. How come none of the islands had bathrooms? Was there a separate linking book to the toilet island, perhaps?
Because when you're on a bathroom, you just go down to the sea. You go down to the ocean.
True.
Awesome sauce.
Or in the fireplace.
Yeah, the fireplace. Cool beans. Well, this has been an absolute joy speaking with
Robyn
tonight, Robyn. It's been great. You're you're fulfilling a childhood fantasy for many of us.
Yeah,
to be able to speak with one of the creators or co-creators of some of our favorite.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for stopping by today.
Oh, this is so much fun. You guys are asking amazing questions. This is great. I appreciate it.
It's all Ron. He came up with all the questions.
He
Yeah,
handed them
so-
out
so-
to you? Is that what he did?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm to blame and thank.
All
So-
right. Perfect. Okay.
No, we try to put our own little spin on his
Yeah,
question.
absolutely.
Okay.
Ron, you have the honors of the last question of the night.
Yep.
Oh, let me look.
He forgot.
Sorry. Where can folks find you online? And it's various places. You said earlier, and we kind of talked about it a little bit with Blue Sky, but
I think it's
what's your
robynmiller.net is my webpage.
Oh, cool.
And let me just see if my website is.
Yeah, it's up.
Yep.
Is that it?
Mhm.
Good.
Is that
And
it?
then my
Mhm.
it's not a very developed website. I should do more, but and then my and then you have my Blue Sky,
Mhm. Yep.
right?
Absolutely, and we linked to it earlier too. So
Okay, great. Yeah.
it's a Tinsel Man.
Yeah.
Mhm. Great. Very cool.
Oh, beans. Awesome
Alright.
sauce. Well, thank you very much for being on. Now is the wonderful section of our show where we indulge
Where
our
I
own-
sing and dance.
Yeah, sure. This is where we talk about what's going on in our own little worlds, and you are absolutely invited to stay and listen to us gab on about our own selfish things, or you can head out for the evening, whichever you like to do. This part doesn't take too long, so
Yeah, it's this is a 10-minute segment.
yes.
Okay. Well, I
Let's
think I'm
talk
going to get
about-
going
Okay.
because my family is in the other room, and I'm going
Doing
to join
things.
them.
All right, Robyn, thanks so much. We really appreciate
Yes.
it.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
This was a great
Thank you.
interview.
This has
Thank
been
you.
great.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
There, Robyn.
Yeah,
All
have a
right.
great
Bye
night.
bye.
Bye.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then there were 3.
Yes. I apologize. I almost didn't do the show tonight because I was feeling like overworked today, but I'm glad that I stopped by today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was really good. Robyn's a good
Thanks,
get.
Joe.
He's a good get for the show.
Yeah.
Yes,
So-
yes.
All right, Javier, you're
Speaking
first
of
up.
gets.
Let's hear about your gets.
Real fast. I'm just.
That's not a get, that's a project, but we'll go with
Well,
it. Go.
I didn't get anything, so that's what I'm pushing these things around. The only things I got are the parts for these little things. So that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm pushing these things to all my friends to test it. These are the USB-C adapters for the same version that I have for the Apple IIc. Now these are for PowerBooks.
Nice.
Yeah, you see, all my friends have them all. Oh yeah.
I ordered 1 and got 2. I don't know what this crazy guy's thinking
You
about.
see? You got
Mhm.
perks. And I just came out with this again. I finished a couple of them. They're very difficult
I saw
to
your
use.
post on that. It is awesome looking. Look at that thing.
It's beautiful. And I got the version that has a little drive that you can take out the card.
Oh, the SD card goes in. Oh, that is awesome, Javier.
Yeah, it's a pain to do it because it has like a real
Mhm.
drive and all that. But
Yeah.
That is insane.
it's really cool. It's really, really cool. So the same thing, it works.
That is an absolute work of art.
and it moves.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
and of course you can charge it, and it's wireless, and you can put it everywhere. And
Mhm.
Now what you need to do is get the disk activity to show up on the disk drive.
yeah, I know, but it's not gonna
Yeah,
happen.
that's
No.
tough.
It's a little bit too much.
It's fine.
That's it.
I know all about asking for extra features to be added to a project at the last minute. It's fine.
Yeah.
Javier. And colored LEDs on a keyboard. Anyway, moving on.
Go ahead, run.
Oh,
Wow,
hey,
what's going on?
I'll talk to you about my what I've been working on, and that is the V2 of the Pico Micromac, which
That's
is
V3, sir.
well, I think the board still says. Oh, it does say V3. I'm
Aha!
terribly sorry. It's right there. It is snake. It bit me, but yeah, the V3 of the Pico Micromax. So if you're interested in the new, smaller, altogether solder-free version of the Pico Micromac that gets you SD card support and all that jazz, they are now in stock at jcm-1.com, and there is a new cool 3D printed, 3D designed case. Many thanks to Gut Bomb. That
Loving it.
Kind of looks like a Quadra 650 or a 2VI, a 2VX, a Performance 600, a PowerMax 7100, whatever you want to call it.
It is.
It's a neat little case.
You can call it a thing of beauty.
You can.
Yep.
And I'll show you my get, and my get is funny. I ordered a programmer switch / reset switch for like the 128 512 plus.
Yeah,
because I didn't have any originals. I ordered one. You'll never guess why they said it didn't work.
Because it was bent.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Because it's bent. So it's like it just slides under the button. Yeah. So
very carefully applied, like low heat and a little bit of patience, and you'll be able to fix that.
Yeah. I mostly just wanted it just to have one. So I've got one now. So I feel good about it.
Just tape it to the side of the computer.
Yeah, that's good.
It'll still not work, but it'll be there.
Yeah, but it'll just physically be there. So that's it for me.
Yes. I don't have anything.
That's fine.
The past month has been crazy mode for me.
Yeah.
Mostly because, not to dump politics too much in our wonderful show, but there have been some crazy things happening in the entire, we'll call it, supply chain system. And I've been going like crazy to try to get stock as high at highest levels as I can before all that craziness happened. And we succeeded in some things, like Blue Scuzzy stock for now is still really good. But other things like the Pico Micromac, we ordered them and then they sold out. And then we ordered more and they sold out. And then we ordered more and they sold out. So so some things are going to be a little bit tight. So
yeah,
but
I'm happy to talk politics because this is one of those political things you can talk about that isn't like attacking somebody on something. And the point is that we are at a place where brinksmanship over tariffs is hurting your friends. It is hurting your hobby. And what you should do, if that is a issue that matters to you, you should call your congressperson, you should call your senator, you should say, hey, let's get this under control because this is affecting everything from the car you buy to the electronics at the store to now, based on an announcement today of a tariff on entertainment products, entertainment productions, think television and movies that are made in other countries. There will now be a tariff on those as well. So your streaming costs will go up. Your cost at the movie theater will go up. Your entertainment, everything is going up based on some very childish brinksmanship that is happening right now. So regardless of what your politics are, this affects your bottom line. This affects your wallet. I promise that no one watching the show makes enough money that this does not affect them on some level. So get mad about it. Call your senator, call your congressman, let them know that brinksmanship is un-American. Thank you.
Yep.
Let me bring it right down to the brass tacks for everybody watching. When I run out of stock of my current products, they're all going to go up by a minimum of 100%. My prices will have to double in order for me to make profit at all.
It's okay, Joe, because everybody's paycheck went up.
Yeah, I know, right? Everybody now makes $28 an hour. It's fine.
It's fine.
But that is just literally the way it is. And so it's gonna, I don't know how to put it. I started doing this as basically my primary job a year ago, and I can't survive.
Yeah, same.
Without raising those rates because my costs have gone up. It's just the way it is, and it's not like I'm an American guy in America making products.
And we don't want to
for mostly Americans the only thing is that I got to get the stuff from somewhere. And the only place where it's cost effective to get it at the time was overseas, because the American companies wanted way more money.
Yes.
And here's my little extra tidbit on that is that I started getting quotes at the beginning of all of this crazy from American companies to say, okay, it might be cost effective. Maybe there's some actual real logic behind the craziness that's going on. No, they just all raise the rates to match the Chinese rate.
Right.
Yeah,
So it doesn't matter when you get it now. It's expensive everywhere.
Yeah. And those prices will never come down.
It is now just more
Citation,
expensive.
rental car fees, airline tickets, literally eggs,
Everything.
milk, everything. Once people figured out the gig was up, that you could just raise prices and never have to bring them back down, they never come back down.
Yep.
If your paycheck is not going up, this absolutely affects you. You will figure this out the hard way, one way or the other. Curtis makes an excellent point. Joe just moved to Canada. The problem with that is that I think the de minimis in Canada was $15. In the United States, it was $800. And it was because this was settled trade policy that had been in place.
It was $800 per day.
So this was settled trade policy that had, unfortunately, just had the wrong chief executive's name on it. The new guy does not like the old guy. So that was a reason enough to unsettle the global economy. So,
Yep.
All right.
Anyway, okay.
That's it.
On that happy note, where can everybody find everybody? Javier.
Go to 8BTs while you can. And then the same thing. Go to 8bit stuff while you can. Because when they're gone, they're gonna be more expensive, and hopefully somebody will buy them. But please do. That's it.
Hey everybody! When I'm not behind the dumpster at Arby's, you can find me on the YubTubs or at ronscompvids.com.
Yep. And hi everybody! I'm Joe from Joe's Computer Museum. I do little things like sell blue scuzzies on the internet. For now, apparently, while you can get the current price on all your favorite stuff to keep your old computers working, go to jcm-1.com and help me out, because when I restock, I'm going to need literally every dime that you guys spent in order to restock everything. So it is going to be helpful for you guys to help me out. If you can't, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. So, but you can also find links to all my social media and other stuff where I rant about people being dumb on the internet. So yes. And finally, who's our next guest?
Oh, you're going to love this, or at least 1-Bit Fever Dreams will. Our next guest is the dark and castless Macintosh game developer, Mark Pierce.
Ooh.
Famous for the game Dark Castle.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is going to be excellent.
That will be a great one. That's in 2
love it.
weeks. 2 weeks. And then after that, I think we're going to have a very special guest that is not like an industry name, but somebody that's got some cool stuff to talk about that they're wanting to promote. So we'll probably take, because we've had like a couple of months now where we've had like where it's big name. I think we need to maybe, especially over the summer, people are busy. We need to maybe talk to some of our friends and do some of those shows too.
That would be good.
So, because I don't want people to think that it's like that everything is shifted, that we don't talk about niche things. We don't talk about projects that our friends are doing and stuff like that. I want to make sure that we spread the love.
Okay. I also want to take a few moments to thank Ron for the past month or two for absolutely kicking butt at helping produce this show. All I do is show up and click buttons, but he's like writing scripts and inviting guests and doing a lot of heavy lifting. So,
and I just
Ron,
your
check
beautiful face.
Ron, do you get residuals on playbacks? Is that how it works?
Yeah, actually, yes. It goes right to Joe's YouTube AdSense account. and then Joe occasionally sends me free things, so it all works out. I think that more than anything, there's a lot of this stuff that we all do that is just for community enrichment, and that's a good way to look at things.
Yeah.
So
Cool beans. Well, we will see you all in a couple weeks on May 18th with our next guest, Mark Pierce. See y'all later. Bye, everybody. Is it going to do it?